All right, today we are tackling a massive idea: human rights. It's a phrase we throw around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? And more importantly, does it mean the same thing to everyone everywhere on the planet? Let's get into it. And really, that's the core question we're wrestling with today. Think about it. Are the rights you take for granted the same rights someone on the other side of the world cherishes? This isn't just a philosophical game. I mean, this debate literally shapes international law, global politics, and maybe most importantly, how we fundamentally see each other. So, okay, let's start with the basics. What's the official definition? Well, if you look at international law, think of the huge one, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948. It says these are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every single person. And there are three key words you got to remember: universal, meaning they're for everyone; inalienable, meaning they can't be taken away from you; and indivisible, which means they're all connected and you can't just pick and choose which ones are important. Okay, so for a long, long time, one particular way of thinking has kind of dominated the global conversation. We're going to call it the Western blueprint. And its main idea? The individual is right at the center of everything. So this way of thinking, it comes straight out of the Enlightenment, thinkers like John Locke. And it has a few key features. First, everything, and I mean everything, is focused on the individual. It also insists that these rights are universal and have to be written down, codified in law. And the absolute top priorities? Liberty and freedom. The whole argument is based on secular, rational logic, not on religion or ancient traditions. And what's the whole point of this? Well, it really boils down to one word: protection. In this view, human rights are basically a shield. They're there to protect you, the individual, from the government or any powerful authority getting too big for its boots. It's all about carving out a protected space just for you, for your personal freedom. But of course, that's not the only story, not by a long shot. Many cultures around the world see human dignity very differently. They start from a completely different point, looking beyond just one person to the entire community. Now, this is an incredibly diverse viewpoint, right? It pulls from traditions all over: Asian, African, Islamic, you name it. But there are some common threads that tie them together. You see a huge focus on the well-being of the group and on our duties to each other, not just our individual rights. There's also this deep respect for cultural and religious values. And very practically, many argue that basic needs, things like food, healthcare, education, are the most fundamental rights of all. And you absolutely cannot forget the huge role that post-colonial history plays in shaping all of this. Okay, I know that can sound a little abstract. So let's look at a really powerful, concrete example. It's an African philosophy called Ubuntu. And this one simple phrase just says it all: I am because we are. Just let that sink in. It means your very humanity, your identity, it's completely tied up with the humanity of everyone else in your community. It's all about being connected, about having a shared responsibility for each other. And this focus on community and duty, it's not just in Africa. You see it all over. In Confucian thought, for example, the ultimate goal is social harmony. And you get there by fulfilling your duties to your family and society. Or look at many interpretations of Islamic law, where rights are seen as coming from God, and they're part of this bigger picture of divine justice and taking care of the whole community. So there you have it. The two main schools of thought are on the table. And this is where we get to the great debate. A real collision between two totally different ideas of what it even means to be human in a just world. You can really boil this whole huge debate down to two very different questions. The Western view tends to ask, what am I, as an individual, free to do? But many non-Western views start somewhere else. They ask, what are my responsibilities to my community? What do I owe to others? See, they're just coming at it from completely different angles. And this chart here really lays it all out, a perfect head-to-head. Just look at the priorities. The Western approach often puts civil and political rights, like freedom of speech, at the very top. Meanwhile, many non-Western approaches say, hold on, socioeconomic rights come first. I mean, you can't really be free if you're starving, right? And check out the view on the state. In one corner, it's seen as a potential threat to your rights. In the other, it's seen as the main protector of the community's well-being. Totally different. So who's right and who's wrong? Well, the interesting thing is, the modern conversation isn't really about one side winning. It's about something much more complicated, and maybe more hopeful. It's about finding that common ground, trying to blend the wisdom from both sides of the argument. And this isn't just some nice theory, by the way. It's actually happening.
If you look at this timeline, you can see the evolution. You start in 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which, yeah, had a very Western-style foundation, but then fast forward to 1981, the African Charter comes along and specifically includes the rights of peoples, of groups, and their duties. Then, in '86, the UN itself puts out a declaration on the right to development, which is a huge shift toward prioritizing economic justice. That was a major point coming from the Global South.
So all of this is leading us to a much more complete, kind of blended view for today's world. It's a view where you don't have to choose. It's not an either-or situation. The thinking now is that rights can be both individual and collective. I mean, think about it. You can't really enjoy your freedom of speech if you don't have food or a place to live, right? The two depend on each other. So the goal becomes, let's have universal rights, for sure, but let's apply them in a way that's actually respectful of different cultures.
And this is maybe the most crucial point of all. We have to remember that this whole debate, it isn't over. It's not finished. The idea of human rights isn't some ancient text carved in stone. It's a living, breathing, global dialogue, and it's constantly changing right along with our world.
Which, it leaves us with this one giant question to think about. It's really the challenge that defines so much of our world today. How can we build a more just world that fiercely protects the rights of the individual, but also honors the needs of the community? How do we balance freedom with our responsibility to each other? Finding that sweet spot, that perfect balance, well, that's the great ongoing work of all of us.